Hello everyone and welcome back to another video, another leg of the Great British Coastal Tour that I'm doing. Now, this is the third leg. The first leg I went from Blackpool to Gretna Green and then Gretna Green to Ayr and then I left it in Ayr. Now I've started this leg in Ayr and I've headed to a certain point, which I'm at now, and you shall find out at the end of the video. So, as I alluded to in the last video, sticking by the actual coast of Britain is a messy task, and in some places completely impossible. The west coast of Scotland is a gloriously wild and rugged coastline of inlets, islands, sea locks and craggy rocks, which the paths and roads tend to steer clear of. My plan for this leg was to get the ferry from Ayr to Kintyre, get a ferry across to Islay, then Jura, then Colonsay, then the ferry to Oban and then cross to Mull. Then I'd finish somewhere on the Ardnamurchan Peninsula if I had time, because in a few days I was scheduled to meet family in Fort William, so we could cycle the Great Glen Way up to Inverness. That was the plan anyway, and I was pretty happy with it, until...
Good evening. As the pandemic of coronavirus claims more lives around the world, the people of the United Kingdom are now being advised to make drastic changes. Now was the moment to stop all non-essential contact with other people and to avoid all non-essential travel.
Summer 2020 was a write-off for any adventures, yet 12 months later pandemic-related safety measures were still in place. Crucially, that meant there were fewer ferries running, and that, for example, there were only 2 ferries a week off Islay, meaning I'd be waiting on the island for 3 days and wouldn't be able to make Fort William in time. And so I was forced to stick to the mainland and grudgingly planned a different route featuring fewer islands. Still, excited to be back out after the pandemic, I hurried away from the station at Ayr towards Ardnamurchan, where I hopped on a 4-hour ferry ride across the Firth of Clyde to Campbelltown, over here on the Mull of Kintyre.
Crew member will issue you with a life jacket and provide...
Hi guys, well good morning, and welcome to the beautiful sunny Mull of Kintyre. And there's a bit of mist rolling in from the sea over there as well. Yes, so welcome to the third leg of my round the British coast cycle. It's been a while because of the pandemic, so it's been 2 years since I've been out on this coast. Pretty much 2 years since I've been out on the bike for any length of time. Right, so this where I am now is Ardnamurchan Rock, or Ardnamurchan Castle really, and there's no remains of any fort or castle here anymore, but it's a beautiful prominent rock sticking out at off the bay of a little village called Southend, on the very south end of Kintyre, and it's a beautiful, I mean, look at that sea over there. So yes, a bit of history here actually. It goes back to 1712 when it was captured, and so it's probably a bit of a fortress before that. Robert the Bruce stayed here in 1306, and there was a bit of a massacre here when a Covenanter army massacred all the royalist loyalists who were staying here in the 17th century, I think. So yeah, a bit of a bloody history. There's a memorial to that over there. Anyway, so today I'm going to hit the road north, and I'm going to be sticking to the western side, the main road really, the western side of Kintyre. I'm just going to see how far we can go. But yeah, let's do it. Right, so it's been a very, very nice morning of cycling so far. I left Southend about 7:30 this morning, and it's about 10:30 now. I'm just south of somewhere called Glenbar, so I've done about 30k, something around that region, I'm not sure actually. And I've come to this nice cemetery here. It's just a tiny little cemetery, but it's just been stunning since I hit the coast here, since I hit the actual waterfront. It's just been absolutely stunning, beautiful, and it's pretty much a flat road as well. Even though it's an A road, it's not that busy. Well worth it. I soon hit the first of many tarbots on my journey through Scotland before pushing on up to the head of Loch Gilp, to somewhere called Loch Gilp Head. Amazingly, for a coastal bike ride, I was now able to get on a canal, the Crinan Canal, which cuts across to the west. The Crinan Canal was opened in 1801 and allowed boats to pass between Glasgow and the islands without having to go all the way around Kintyre. But it was beset by problems. Firstly, it was difficult to persuade enough navvies to come to this remote part of Scotland to dig the canal when other places closer to home, such as Glasgow, had plenty of work going. There was a collapse of the canal in 1805, and then a collapse of one of its 2 reservoirs in 1811. The canal company drafted the famous Thomas Telford in to redesign the canal, and by 1847 it was doing so well that Queen Victoria travelled along by boat, making it an attractive tourist route thereafter. By the time I'd reached Cairnban, I'd done 104 kilometres, or 65 miles, and so pitched my tent up a steep hill by the edge of Dial Loch, one of the lochs that feeds the canal with water. After getting attacked by midges, the next morning was pretty featureless, to be honest, so I didn't bother filming anything. Just a busy A road full of timber lorries and no sight of the sea. I also broke 2 spokes on my back wheel, somehow, so spent all day worrying about that. Soon enough though, I was in Oban and things were back on track. Good morning everybody on day 3, morning 3 at least, of this leg, and I'm in Oban. As you can see, beautiful view from here. I'm at the McCaig Monument, which when I was a kid I always thought was an actual Roman amphitheatre back from the old days, and it's not. So anyway, so yeah, Oban. So with 2 days to play with roughly before I get to Fort William to start the Great Glen Way, I thought I'd do a bit of island hopping, which I'd missed out on earlier on, and I got to Oban yesterday about 3 o'clock, and I thought I'd jump on a ferry and go to Mull and stay over at the Duart Castle over there, kind of wild camp over at Duart Castle. Anyway, as it turns out, this great pandemic we're having means that the ferries are running third capacity or something like that, and if you haven't booked then you're not getting on. I thought I'd just walk on like most people do. Oban's story is definitely stranger than many other port towns around Britain. Before the 19th century it was a small fishing village that saw very few visitors. However, when writer Walter Scott visited the area in 1814 and later published his famous book Lord of the Isles, tourist interest in Oban picked up. The Calendar to Oban Railway began construction in 1864, but it was 16 years before it actually reached Oban. By now, Oban's importance as a small port had grown, and by the 20th century, it had quickly become the most important port town on the west coast of the Scottish mainland, the gateway to the islands.
Yeah, well, lady up.
No problem. A windy ferry ride across the Firth of Lorne was a welcome break from all of the cycling of the last 2 days, and I must admit, by now I was more excited about ferry rides than somebody my age probably should be. But sadly I now had less than 2 days to spare, just over a day and a half, so my visit to Mull would have to be super short. And with it being a Sunday, the last ferry out of Tobermory was at 4 o'clock, so there was no time to waste getting there. Right, so look at this. This is Tobermory, the beautiful fishing village on the north end of the island of Mull, and I made it to Tobermory, and I didn't think I would. As I was speaking to an Oban, this part of the plan was gone, and I've got enough time to get the last ferry now across. It's, with it being a Sunday, it's at 4 o'clock to Kilcoin, back on the mainland, where I want to be. So a whistle-stop tour of the Isle of Mull, but I'll come back, I'll do this properly. But I just wanted to see this. I just wanted to see this. Despite its fun name, Tobermory simply comes from a Gaelic translation for Mary's Well, but the village might be holding on to a bigger secret. According to legend, the wrecked remains of a Spanish galleon dating back to the 1588 Spanish Armada attack on Britain sank here laden with gold bullion. Several attempts have been made over the centuries to recover the gold, but nothing has so far been found. Another short ferry ride leads me away from Mull and back to the mainland. This is Ardnamurchan. Ardnamurchan is one of the most remote parts of Britain, a place of wild, rugged shores, sleepy villages, dramatic sea views and unspoiled landscapes. And that landscape betrays the area's volcanic past, as seen from above. 60 million years ago, a huge volcano was centred here. Another volcano further south formed large parts of Mull. Most of the volcano has eroded away completely, but what are left is crystallised rocks that once sat deep inside the magma chamber, today forming 3 circles that give away the various outlets the volcano had in its long history. A single track road leads across this epic landscape and towards the westerlymost point of mainland Britain, not far from where a lighthouse today stands. So this, ladies and gentlemen, is Ardnamurchan Lighthouse, the most westerly point in mainland Britain. The island of Great Britain, this is the most westerly point. Well, actually, technically, the rocks down there, it's the most westerly you can get on Britain. But yes, I can't believe I made it here. It was so touch and go this morning when I woke up in Oban, and I was looking at ferries and I was looking at cycling times, and I had problems with my wheel. I didn't think I'd make it here, and I have. I don't know if you can see in the distance over there, that is the Isle of Rum. And then over here we've got that thin one over there is Col. And then just peeking out over there is Mull again, the very western tip of Mull. So you can see quite a lot from this vantage point. The cycle from the Kilcoin ferry, by the way, to here was wonderful. It's about 7 miles. And the road's up and down, up and down, up and down. Single track the whole way. But the landscape is just, it's old volcanic. It's ancient volcanic land, but it's just reminiscent of Iceland or something like that. So remote. Very, very lucky. And I'm very lucky not to have any wind at the moment, actually. So yes, I'm very, very happy to make it here. I don't know if you can tell. So there you go. It's been one hell of a journey from Ayr, where I started this leg. You remember the last leg, I went from Gretna Green to Ayr. That's pretty straightforward around the coast. This time it was a bit all over the place. How would you follow the west coast of Scotland without, you know, missing bits out? It's impossible. It's such a higgledy-piggledy coast. And there was a few things that didn't pan out, like ferries because of the pandemic. So I didn't get to see Islay. But I did get to see Mull, if only for a couple of hours. And I did get to come here. So, yeah, wonderful. So, thinking back, what is it? Thursday afternoon I got to Ayr. And now it's Sunday evening, I'm here. It's a lot of ground covered. It's a hell of a lot of ground covered. So, yes, this is where I'm going to end this leg because it's such a prominent point. Join me on the next video where we'll go a little bit even more further north and yes, get even more adventurous. By the way, from here now, my journey isn't over personally. I've got to cycle from here to Fort William, which is a good 60 miles or so, in little over 36 hours, because then, like I say, I'm picking up my parents and we're going up the Great Glen Way to Inverness. So technically this is my halfway point on the entire journey from Ayr to Inverness. But for this video, for the coastal video, for me and you, this is it. This is the final point. But yes, thanks so much for joining me. It's been a bit of a weird leg, this one, and I hope you're encouraged to do it, because it's been worthwhile. Even the problems that went wrong, even the bicycle problems, the mechanical problems, even the ferry problems, it all pays off in the end. And you know what? Don't worry, be happy, and life works out in the end. So thanks very much for watching, and I'll catch you in the next leg. Bye.